Welcome back to Secrets Exposed. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. You're the reason these stories are worth sharing. Tell us where you're watching from, city or country. We're amazed by how far these tales reach. To get daily new and amazing stories for you, please subscribe our channel and press bell icon. All right, let's begin. The submarine creaked like a living thing, a metal beast groaning under miles of Arctic ice. Inside its narrow corridors, red lights pulsed over sweating faces and quiet hands. Commander Ryan Cole stood at the sonar station, listening to the hum of the deep. It was routine, mechanical, predictable. The kind of silence only men who've lived underwater for months can understand. Then, out of nowhere, a faint ping echoed to the hull. He leaned in. Repeat contact? The technician frowned. Negative, sir. Might be interference. But Ryan's got twisted. After years beneath the sea, he'd learned the difference between interference and a warning. He watched the screen's green line pulse once, twice, then flatline. The hum of the sub returned, steady, unbroken. He exhaled slowly, and then his headset crackled. At first, he thought it was static. Then a voice, trembling, broke through. "Commander Cole, this is Mercy General Hospital." He froze. That wasn't a Navy frequency. He looked at the communications officer, who shook his head. The channel wasn't cleared. Ryan's throat went dry. "Repeat that. Identify yourself." "This is Dr. Elise Morgan." The voice said. "Your daughter, Emily Cole, she's in intensive care." The room tilted, air thinning. For a second, he didn't breathe. His pulse roared in his ears, louder than the engines. "What happened?" he managed to ask, each word dragging through gravel. The doctor hesitated. She sustained severe injuries. We're stabilizing her. I can't say more on an unsecured line. Is she conscious? Barely. I'm sorry, Commander. You need to come home. Static swallowed the rest. The channel died. The room was still, except for the steady hum of machines. Crewmen looked anywhere but at him. Ryan stared at the metal wall, trying to find air inside the steel coffin. He blinked once hard and forced his voice steady. Re-established the link. "Sir, that frequency's gone dark." It wasn't military approved. He gripped the console until his knuckles blanched. His daughter. ICU. Unknown injuries. The doctor's trembling voice. Every word felt like it had been dragged across his spine. The first officer stepped closer. "Sir, we have orders to maintain course. Ice density ahead requires." "Shut it," Ryan said quietly. The man froze. Ryan rarely raised his voice, but when he spoke like that, the room listened. He turned, walking toward the control deck. His boots echoed down the narrow corridor, steady, measured. Each step felt heavier than the last. The air tasted of rust and recycled fear. He reached his quarters, closed the door, and pressed both hands against the cold bulkhead. He tried to think logically. Chain of command, procedure, contact protocols. But logic was useless in the face of a hospital voice whispering, "Your daughter is in intensive care." He pulled open a locker and stared at a photo taped inside, a crayon drawing Emily made years ago. Her, him, and a blue whale under the sea. "Daddy, find me under the ocean," she'd written in crooked letters. He touched the drawing with his fingertips, his breath catching. The intercom buzzed overhead. "Commander, sonar ready for next sweep." He didn't respond. He stared at the photo a moment longer, then straightened his shoulders and exhaled. The decision had already been made. He just hadn't said it out loud yet. He turned toward the bridge, eyes hollow but focused. The hum of the engines filled the silence as he walked back down the corridor. Every red light flicker, every metallic groan, felt like the sea itself whispering what he already knew. He was going to break orders. He was going home. And the man responsible for putting his daughter in that hospital would not see sunrise. The control room's hum carried the tension of 100 unspoken questions. Ryan Cole stood at the center, the red light cutting hard shadows across his face. His mind ran in loops. The doctor's voice, the word intensive, the hollow crackle of that unfinished sentence. He had been trained to stay calm through missile drills, reactor leaks, and deep-sea pressure failures. But this was pressure of another kind. His world was collapsing in absolute silence. "Commander," his first officer said quietly, "we're approaching designated coordinates." "Orders." Ryan didn't answer immediately. He stared at the sonar display, its rhythmic sweep steady and cruel. Somewhere above that thick ice ceiling, his daughter was fighting for breath, and he was trapped beneath a world that had no sky. He finally spoke, voice low but sharp. "Patch me through to Surface Command. I want a secured uplink." "Sir, protocol." I said, "Patch it through." A tense pause. Keys clacked, static hissed. The communications officer turned, face pale. "Channel ready, Commander." Ryan stepped to the console, forcing his voice into measure control. "This is Commander Cole of Vessel Ares. Emergency override. Request immediate authorization for early surfacing due to personal crisis." The response came, metallic and detached. "Request acknowledged. Stand by for clearance." Seconds dragged. Every heartbeat stretched the air thinner. Then another voice filled the line, smoother, colder, and too familiar. "Commander Cole, this is Captain Bennett. Your request is denied." His jaw clenched. "Ma'am, this is not a request. My daughter is in ICU." "I'm aware," Bennett said after a long beat. "We intercepted the hospital message." "I'm sorry, Ryan, but your mission remains classified. You'll complete your run, then return." He felt something inside him break. Quietly, cleanly, like ice under strain. "You intercepted it?" "Protocol," she said softly. "You're a critical asset. Emotional interference compromises command judgment." The line went dead. For a moment, there was nothing, just a low whine of turbines and the creak of the hull. Ryan's reflection in the black glass of the sonar screen looked like a stranger's, calm eyes hiding an implosion. He turned toward his officers. "Prepare for emergency ascent." The first officer hesitated. "Sir, without clearance, that's—" "Mutiny?" Ryan said, his tone flat. "Then consider this my confession." The man swallowed hard but nodded. "Aye, Commander." Sirens began their slow, rising moan as ballast tanks hissed and groaned. The submarine shifted, the weight of the Arctic pressing down in protest. Metal screamed as the vessel clawed upward through black water, toward a world Ryan no longer recognized. "Depth decreasing," someone called out. 200 meters, 150. The hull shuddered like it might tear in half. Everyone held their breath. Then, a thunderous crack. A bloom of bubbles roared past the viewing ports as the submarine burst through the ice shelf, breaking into pale, ghostly light. Ryan stood at the periscope, the surface world a blinding white blur above. The horizon was nothing but frozen silence. He lowered the scope, breathing hard. His voice came steady again, like a man whose purpose had hardened beyond repair. "Signal the extraction chopper. Tell them I'm coming home." The first officer nodded, whispering, "Sir, they'll court-martial you." Ryan stared at the frost forming on the window, the thin pattern like veins under glass. "Let them." He looked down at the old drawing tucked in his pocket. Emily's wail, the crooked words. "Daddy, find me under the ocean. I'm done being underwater," he whispered. Outside, the wind howled across the frozen sea as the submarine exhaled steam into the dawn. Beneath that endless sheet of ice, the Navy would call him a deserter. But up there, somewhere, his daughter was waiting, and nothing in the world would keep him submerged any longer. The helicopter blades tore through the Arctic air. Like a heartbeat, Ryan couldn't slow down. The world below was a frozen desert, jagged white stretching forever. Yet inside the cabin it was heat, noise, and rage. The pilot avoided his eyes. No one spoke. Everyone knew this extraction was unauthorized, but no one dared stop him. Ryan sat rigid, headset pressed against his ears, tried to anchor himself to the rhythmic whine of the engine. Focus, he told himself. Facts, not fear. But the memory of the doctor's trembling voice bled through every thought. Then, a new tone buzzed in his headset. A private, encrypted channel. A woman's voice, hushed and fast. "Commander Cole? This is Nurse Evelyn from Mercy General. Please don't speak. Just listen. Ryan's grip on the seat tightened. I'm listening. She paused, as if checking no one else was near. The hospital isn't supposed to contact you again. We were ordered to stop updates, but I couldn't. It's your daughter. His pulse surged. Tell me? She's stable for now, but her injuries... Commander! This was an accident. He froze. The sound of the helicopter dissolved, replaced by a single, roaring silence in his ears. What do you mean was an accident? His voice dropped, too calm to be safe. The nurse hesitated, voice trembling. Your ex-wife's partner, Mark Halston. He brought Emily in. Said she fell. But... She exhaled shakily. Commander, the bruising, the injuries, they don't match a fall. I filed a report, but before it reached the police, it was withdrawn. The prosecutor's office shut it down within an hour. The man responsible, he's protected. Ryan's chest constricted as if the ice had wrapped around his ribs. Protected by who? His uncle, she whispered. The city prosecutor. No one will touch him. I shouldn't even be telling you this. They said if we talk, we lose our licenses. Her breath trembled over the radio. I thought you should know the truth before someone else decides you shouldn't. Static cracked. Then the line went dead. Ryan sat motionless, the headset heavy in his hands. The helicopter tilted slightly with turbulence, but inside him, everything had gone still, a dangerous kind of still. His mind replayed every second of that call. Was an accident, protected, no one will touch him. He stared out the window at the endless expanse of ice, each shard reflecting fragments of the life he'd missed. Birthdays over video calls. A little girl's voice saying, "It's okay, Daddy. I know you're saving people." And now no one had saved her. The pilot's voice broke the silence. Commander, ETA 20 minutes to base. Ryan didn't answer. His jaw flexed once, a restrained storm under the comm. Then he pulled the headset off and leaned forward. Divert course. The pilot blinked. Sir, nearest civilian airstrip. I'll take it from there. Sir, I don't have clearance to. You do now. There was something in Ryan's tone, not anger, not threat, just certainty. The kind of certainty that made rules irrelevant. The pilot swallowed and adjusted the heading without another word. As the Arctic horizon thinned into pale blue light, Ryan closed his eyes. He saw Emily's small hands drawing that whale. Sarah smiled the day she left, and the thin line between the man he was and the one he was about to become. He whispered to himself, a vow spoken into the freezing roar of the blades. They silenced the law. I'll make them hear her. The helicopter banked south, away from command, away from reason. For the first time in years, Ryan felt the cold burn of freedom, and the beginning of something irreversible. The helicopter touched down on a snow-coated runway in the middle of nowhere. The engine coughed, then fell quiet, leaving only the groan of Arctic wind. Ryan Cole stepped out, boots sinking into white silence. For a moment, he just stood there, staring at the horizon, a sky of gray iron and dying light. He'd been under the ocean for months, but this still felt like suffocation. The pilot leaned out of the cockpit. Sir, command's calling nonstop. They want you back on base. Ryan didn't look back. Tell him I'm done taking orders. He started walking toward the small operations shack at the edge of the strip. His duffel hung at his shoulder. Inside it, nothing but uniform, credentials, and a photograph he couldn't bear to look at anymore. The air was so cold it cracked when he breathed. Inside the shack, a civilian clerk blinked up at him. Commander Cole? I just got a... Fuel. Civilian route. Now. Sir, you don't have... Ryan's stare cut the rest of the sentence off. The clerk swallowed, typed fast, handed him a printed slip. There's a supply transport heading south. You can catch it if you move. He nodded once and left the paper on the counter, walking out without another word. The supply plane was old, loud, and half-frozen, but it was moving south. That was enough. Ryan sat alone near the cargo bay door, watching clouds drift like torn fabric. The crew pretended not to notice the Navy patch on his jacket. He removed it anyway, somewhere over Greenland. He finally powered on his encrypted sat phone. Messages flooded in, warnings, orders. A dozen threats disguised as protocol. The last one bore Captain Bennett's signature. Stand down. You're risking everything. Return immediately. He stared at the text for a long moment, thumb hovering. Then he typed back a single line. Everything was already risked. You just didn't tell me. He powered the device off. Hours later, the plane refueled in Norway. Ryan stepped out to stretch and caught sight of his reflection in a hangar window. The man looking back was still in uniform but stripped of purpose. Eyes hard, jaw clenched against 1,000 words he'd never say. A maintenance worker recognized the insignia. American Navy, huh? You running from something or toward it? Ryan zipped his coat. Does it matter? The man laughed softly, lit a cigarette, and said, Either way, good luck. Both cost the same. When the next flight south opened, Ryan paid in cash and boarded. No name, no rank, just a seat by the window. The darkness outside thickened. Cities below blinked like weak stars. He closed his eyes and memories crowded in. Emily's laughter through a phone screen. Sarah's cold voice telling him, You can't keep missing birthdays forever. And the silence that always followed. He remembered their last conversation before deployment. Be careful, she'd said. I always am. I mean with us, Ryan. You disappear even when you're home. She'd been right. He'd spent years diving into oceans, so he wouldn't have to surface into his own life. But now, there was no mission worth returning to. Somewhere over Europe, turbulence jolted the cabin. A child cried. Ryan opened his eyes and saw a little girl clutching a stuffed whale, blue and frayed at the seams. He froze, the sound of his daughter's laughter echoing from 1,000 miles away. He reached into his pocket and touched Emily's drawing, creased, faded, but still bright with childish color. He ran his thumb across her handwriting. The flight attendant approached quietly. Sir, can I get you anything? He shook his head. No, just a smooth landing. She smiled faintly and moved on. He watched her go, then turned his gaze back to window. Below, dawn crawled along the edge of the world, painting the clouds in slow gold. For the first time in months, Ryan wasn't thinking about the ocean or orders or the endless hum of machinery. He was thinking about his daughter's hand gripping his finger in a hospital bed, about a system that protected monsters, and about how, when the law failed, a father had only one mission left. He whispered it to himself, barely a breath. Get her back. Make it right. The engines roared. The plane dove into the sunrise. The plane touched down in Washington long before the city woke. The runway lights shimmered through mist like fading stars. Ryan Cole walked down the steps with a single duffel over his shoulder, a shadow among other passengers, invisible but dangerous. He had been gone for months beneath the ice, and now everything around him felt unreal, too loud, too bright, too easy to break. At the terminal gate, a pair of Navy officers waited. Their posture screamed, Orders! The younger one stepped forward. Commander Cole, sir. You're to return to base immediately. Captain Bennett requests your... Ryan didn't slow his stride. I'm not returning. Sir, you're facing court-martial if you don't comply. He turned just long enough for the officer to see the eyes of a man who'd already made peace with consequences. Then start the paperwork. He walked past them without another word. The senior officer didn't follow. Some men know when to step aside. Outside, dawn was only a rumor behind heavy clouds. Ryan caught a cab, voice low and steady. Mercy General Hospital. The driver glanced at the uniform. Long flight, huh? Longest of my life. Neither spoke again. The hospital loomed gray and tired, its windows fogged from the cold. Ryan walked through automatic doors that hissed open like an airlock, into the sterile hum of machines and murmured conversations. The receptionist froze when she saw his rank insignia. I'm here for Emily Cole, he said. She nodded quickly, tapping the keyboard. ICU room 6B. He moved fast, ignoring the stairs that trailed behind him. Each step through that corridor felt heavier, the sound of ventilators mixing with the dull thud of his heartbeat. He stopped at the window outside 6B. Inside, his daughter lay small beneath a mountain of white sheets. Her arm was bandaged, her skin pale and still. The faint rise and fall of her chest was the only proof she was still here. A doctor, in a gray coat, looked up from the monitors. Dr. Elise Morgan. Her eyes widened slightly. Commander Cole? He nodded. She stepped outside, closing the door quietly. I wasn't sure you'd make it. I wasn't supposed to. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. She's stable for now. The injuries were severe, but she's fighting. Ryan's throat tightened. The nurse called me. She said this was an accident. The doctor's face went pale. She glanced around the hall before answering. You weren't supposed to hear that. Then say it here. Not in whispers. Dr. Morgan swallowed hard. There was an investigation, brief, incomplete. The suspect was identified but never charged. The report vanished before it reached the DA's office. I filed a duplicate. The hospital received a warning the next morning. From who? The prosecutor's office. His uncle's office. Ryan felt his jaw lock. Mark Halston. Her silence was confirmation enough. He leaned against the wall, trying to breathe past the pressure in his chest. Where's Sarah? Your ex-wife's been here, the doctor said carefully. She's with social services right now. She doesn't know you're back. He nodded slowly. Keep it that way? Dr. Morgan frowned. Commander, I can lose my license if... I didn't ask you to lie. Just don't stop me from telling the truth. He turned back toward the glass, watching Emily's small hand twitch faintly. The sight broke something steady inside him. I'll need copies of every file, he said softly. Every note, every test, every word they tried to erase. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. You'll have them. But be careful. These people, they don't lose. Ryan's eyes never left his daughter. Neither do I. Outside, the day had begun in shades of cold gray. As he stepped into the parking lot, his phone buzzed, a private Navy number flashing on the screen. He answered. Captain Bennett's voice was tight. Ryan, what have you done? What you wouldn't. They'll come for you. You can still turn yourself in. He looked at the sky, the faint warmth of sunlight breaking through the clouds. You knew before I did, didn't you? A long silence. Then, orders, Ryan. I didn't have a choice. He hung up. The line went dead. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and exhaust. Ryan tightened his coat, jaw set. There was no going back to who he'd been under that ice. The surface had changed him. He looked once more at the hospital building behind him, then whispered, I'm done following orders. The next step he took wasn't as a commander. It was as a father on a warpath. The hospital's automatic doors slid shut behind him, but Ryan didn't leave. He stood in the courtyard for a long time, letting the cold bite into him until his hands went numb. He could still see Emily's pale face in his mind, those half-closed eyes, her small hand wrapped in tubes. The image played over and over, burning into him like frostbite that wouldn't fade. He needed answers, and only one person had them. Sarah. He called her number from a disposable phone he'd bought at the airport. The line rang twice before her voice came through. Calm, careful, rehearsed. Hello. It's me. The pause on the other end lasted too long. Ryan. He didn't waste time. I'm in the city. I saw Emily. Another silence, then a shaky breath. You shouldn't have come here. She's my daughter. I know, but you're being watched. They came to the house already. 2 men in suits. They said if you show up, I'm supposed to call them. Did you? Her breath hitched. No. He exhaled slowly, his tone softening for the first time. Where are you? There was hesitation, then resignation. The old apartment on Elm Street. I'm on my way. Ryan, don't. He ended the call before she could finish. Some things didn't need permission. The drive to Elm Street was long and heavy. The city blurred past in streaks of rain and orange light. He caught glimpses of things he didn't recognize anymore. Billboards, new buildings, streets that had changed names. Time had moved on without him. When he reached the building, he parked across the street. The windows glowed faintly through the drizzle. He climbed the stairs slowly, every creak of the wood announcing a confrontation long overdue. Sarah opened the door before he knocked. Her face looked older than he remembered. her eyes red-rimmed and sleepless. She stepped aside wordlessly, letting him in. The apartment smelled like coffee and cold fear. She folded her arms, her voice brittle. "I know what you're thinking, Ryan, but you don't understand how dangerous this is." He stared at her. "Then make me understand." She hesitated, glancing toward the window as if expecting someone there. "Mark." He has friends. His uncle runs a prosecutor's office. When the report came in, it disappeared before it ever reached a judge. They told me if I pushed it, they'd take Emily away for custody instability. They said it was my fault for leaving her with him that night. Ryan's voice dropped into a low, controlled whisper. "So you said nothing?" "I tried," she said, her tone cracking. "I called, I begged. No one would touch it. They said he was connected. You think I didn't want to scream?" He looked at her, eyes unreadable. "You screamed to the wrong people." She flinched. "And what about you, Ryan? You were under the ocean while I was trying to keep our daughter breathing." Her words hit like a slap, but he didn't react. "That's over now. Tell me where he lives." "Ryan, no." "Where?" Her silence was an answer in itself. He stepped closer, his voice steady but colder than the rain outside. "You know what he did. You saw what he left her like. If I don't stop him, he'll do it again to her or someone else. You know I'm right." Tears filled her eyes, but she still shook her head. "You can't fix this by hurting him." He stared for a moment, then said softly, "Watch me." He turned to leave. Sarah's hand caught his sleeve. "If you do this, they'll destroy you." He paused at the door, not looking back. They already did. Outside, rain had turned to sleet. He pulled his collar high and walked toward the car, the night swallowing him whole. He drove without headlights through the quiet streets until he reached the bridge overlooking the city. He stopped there, engine idling, watching reflections ripple in the black water below. He took Emily's drawing from his pocket and laid it on the dashboard. The whale, the crooked smile, the promise of another life. His thumb brushed the words again. "Daddy, find me under the ocean." He whispered, "I found you." Then he started the engine and drove into the night, toward the address he already knew by heart. By the time Ryan reached the hospital again, dawn had broken in dull streaks of gray. The city was barely waking, but inside Mercy General, time had already lost meaning. He moved fast through the corridors, boots echoing against tile. Nurses glanced up, startled, then looked away. They'd learned to read the expression of a man carrying too much purpose. He turned the corner to room 6B, then stopped. The bed was empty. The blankets were folded, machines silent, and the smell of antiseptic hung heavier than before. For a moment, Ryan couldn't move. His mind spun through every possibility, refusing to land on the one he feared most. He grabbed the nearest nurse by the arm, his voice rough. "Where is she?" The nurse jumped. "Commander Cole, please calm down." "Where's my daughter?" Before the nurse could answer, Dr. Morgan appeared from behind the curtain of the next room, her face drawn and pale. "Ryan, come with me." He followed her into the hallway, every muscle coiled. "Tell me what happened." She closed the door behind them and lowered her voice. "There was a complication during the night. Her vitals dropped suddenly. We moved her to the pediatric ICU." He exhaled sharply. "So she's alive?" "Yes," she said quickly, "but she's not improving. We had to sedate her to keep her stable." Ryan's chest tightened. "I want to see her." "I'll take you," she said, hesitating. "But there's something else you should know first." She walked him down the hall, her steps quiet. "There was a visitor here last night. He claimed to be family, Mark Halston. Security let him in before we could stop him." Ryan stopped walking. The hallway suddenly felt colder. "He was here." Dr. Morgan nodded. He didn't reach Emily. A nurse confronted him. He left before the police arrived. Ryan's voice dropped low. "You called the police?" She looked away. "They didn't come." He stared at her, searching her face for any hint of exaggeration. There was none. "Do you have security footage?" "Gone," she whispered. "Wiped within an hour. The head of hospital security was replaced this morning. No one will admit why. Ryan's pulse pounded in his ears. It was happening again, the system folding in on itself to protect a man who hurt a child. He felt the walls close, the same helpless pressure as the ice overhead in the submarine. When they reached the ICU, Ryan stopped outside the glass. Emily lay hooked to new machines, smaller, paler, but breathing. Every beat was a heartbeat that kept him from breaking apart. "I can't let him near her again," Ryan said quietly. Dr. Morgan's voice trembled. "You can't take this into your own hands." He looked at her, eyes hollow. "The law already handed it to me." She wanted to argue, but she couldn't. There was something in his tone, cold, final, that silenced her. He placed a hand on the glass, separating him from his daughter. "You said he was here last night. That means someone told him where she was." She hesitated, then nodded. Her mother. Sarah signed him in. She said he just wanted to apologize. Ryan's hand tightened against the glass until his knuckles whitened. Apologize? He turned to leave, but Dr. Morgan caught his arm. "Commander, don't do something you can't come back from." He looked down at her, calm and terrifyingly certain. "You think I ever came back from the ocean?" He walked away before she could answer. Outside, the air felt sharper, the sky darker than before. He lit a cigarette, his first in years, and watched the smoke curl upward like ghosts. Somewhere out there, Mark Halston was still walking free, untouched by consequence, laughing behind the shield of his uncle's name. Ryan flicked the cigarette away, eyes fixed on the horizon. "You came to her bed once," he murmured. "Now I'll come to yours." The promise left his lips like a verdict. Inside, the machines kept beeping, steady, fragile, alive. But outside, something much older than justice had already begun to move. Rain hit the city in long, slanted sheets that night, blurring lights into smears of gold. Ryan parked a block away from the district courthouse and sat in silence, engine running low. The building ahead was quiet now, but inside those walls worked the same men who had buried his daughter's case in paperwork and excuses. He stared through the windshield, the wipers dragging across glass like tire hearts. He wasn't there for the courthouse, not yet. He was waiting for the man who moved freely because of it. Mark Halston. The hospital's camera logs might have been erased, but people still talked if you knew how to listen. Ryan had spent the day in back corridors, asking questions quietly, buying silence where needed. By dusk, he had an address, a downtown penthouse leased by Halston Construction, top floor, guarded by no one who thought danger came from below. Ryan glanced at the clock. 9:17 p.m. Across the street, the courthouse doors opened. Mark stepped out, laughing with two men in tailored suits. Even in the rain, he looked smug. Slicked hair, expensive coat, the walk of someone whose worst days still ended in luxury. Ryan watched him wave the men off, pull a phone from his pocket, and duck under the overhang where a black sedan waited. Ryan started the engine. The sedan rolled out into traffic, headlights slicing through the storm. Ryan followed two cars behind, hands steady on the wheel. Each red light felt like a test of patience. Every flash of the brake lights ahead burned through him like a heartbeat. 15 minutes later, the sedan turned into a private garage beneath a tall glass building. Ryan parked near the service entrance, killed the lights, and stepped into the rain. The cold bit through his jacket, but he didn't feel it. The guard at the door barely looked up. Buildings closed. Ryan flashed his military ID. Emergency inspection. Gas leak reported in sublevel 2. The man frowned, scanning the card too fast and noticed the expired date. Gas leak? Ryan leaned closer. "You really want to be the guy who ignored it?" The guard hesitated, then hit the buzzer. The door clicked open. "Make it quick." Ryan nodded once and slipped inside. The elevator hummed upward, smooth and silent. He watched the floor numbers climb. 10, 11, 12, each one a countdown. When the doors opened, the hallway glowed in soft amber light, lined with photographs, charity galas, construction sites, smiling politicians. And there, in the middle of it all, the same smirking face he'd seen in the courthouse doorway. Ryan walked until he reached the last door on the right. Apartment 1203. He knocked once. Footsteps. Then the door opened a crack. Mark Halston stood there, robe tied loose, glass of whiskey in hand. Who the hell? Ryan pushed the door open with one hand. The glass slipped from Mark's fingers, shattering on the marble floor. You don't remember me, Ryan said, stepping inside, voice steady as a loaded weapon. But you remember her. Mark blinked, confusion flickering into recognition. You're Cole, the Navy guy. He laughed, short and sharp. You're insane showing up here. You know who my uncle is. Ryan took a slow step forward. That's why I'm here. Mark smirked, though his voice trembled now. You think you can scare me? You're already a wanted man. You assaulted federal protocol, went AWOL. Yeah, Ryan said. I broke every rule for her. Mark's face hardened. You touch me, and you'll disappear. Understand? I've got protection you can't even... Ryan closed the distance between them. I've spent my life underwater, Halston. I know exactly how to make things disappear. Mark stumbled back, suddenly aware of the difference between power on paper and power in a room. He grabbed his phone, but Ryan was faster, snatched it from his hand and tossed it across the room. It hit the wall and cracked. Why'd you go to the hospital? Ryan asked quietly. Mark's breath hitched. To see her. To explain. Explain what? How gravity beat her black and blue. Mark's mouth opened, then closed. No answer. Ryan stepped closer until their faces were inches apart. You ever come near her again, I'll show you what the ocean taught me. He turned to leave, stopping only at the doorway. Tell your uncle I'm coming next. Mark's voice followed, shaky and small. You'll regret this. Ryan looked back, eyes dead calm. You already do. Then he walked out into the rain, letting the door swing shut behind him. Down on the street, thunder rolled low across the sky. He didn't feel victory, only the slow, certain pull of something darker. He'd seen the face of the man protected by power, and realized this wasn't justice yet. It was only the beginning of war. Ryan didn't sleep that night. He sat in his car crossing the courthouse, watching lights go out one by one in the prosecutor's office windows. The rain had stopped, but the streets still glistened like wet glass. His fingers tapped against the steering wheel in slow rhythm, the same tempo as his daughter's heart monitor. Each beep in his mind was a reminder she was still fighting, and he was running out of time. He replayed everything. Mark's smirk, the silence from the police, the missing report, and Bennett's voice on the phone saying, Orders, Ryan. I didn't have a choice. That phrase echoed like a curse. Everyone had orders. Everyone had excuses. Everyone but him. At 4 a.m., the courthouse cleaning crew arrived. Ryan stepped out of the car, blending into their motion, a man in a gray jacket, carrying a folder like any other worker starting his shift. Inside, the marble halls smelled of bleach and politics. The security guard barely looked up from his coffee. Ryan moved with purpose, down corridors lined with portraits of men who had never paid for their sins. He reached the records room and slid his fake ID through the scanner. The green light blinked. Access granted. He pulled a flashlight from his pocket and searched the cabinets until he found it. Case hashtag 4271B, Emily Cole. The folder was thinner than it should have been, barely 2 pages left inside. He opened it. The medical report was incomplete, half the photographs missing. The nurse's statement cut off mid-sentence. On the last page was a signature in bold ink. District Prosecutor Arthur Halston. Mark's uncle. Ryan stared at the name for a long moment, jaw tightening until it hurt. Then he heard footsteps behind him. Commander Cole. He turned slowly. Detective Alan Pierce stood in the doorway, raincoat dripping, expression unreadable. You're lucky I'm the one who found you. The place opens in 2 hours. Ryan didn't move. You knew about this. Pierce sighed. Yeah, and so does everyone else in this building. They closed at the moment it reached the DA's desk. Why didn't you stop them? The detective's face hardened. Because men like me don't get to stop them. We get transferred. Or buried. He stepped closer. I told you, no one will save you if you go after him. Ryan looked back at the file. Then I won't need saving. Pierce glanced at the folder in Ryan's hand. "You're crossing a line that doesn't wash clean, Commander." Ryan met his eyes. "You think it ever was clean?" For a moment, the two men just stood there, soldier and detective, both ghosts of what duty had destroyed. Then Pierce reached into his coat and pulled out a small flash drive. Evidence I couldn't log officially. Security feed from the hospital lobby before it was wiped. It shows Mark entering that night. Ryan took it, their eyes locking. "Why give it to me?" Pierce hesitated. "Because someone should finish what the law started and didn't. But when you do, don't say my name." Ryan nodded once. "You never existed." He left the courthouse before dawn, blending into gray that always follows corruption. By morning, he was back at the hospital. Emily's machines hummed quietly. He placed a flash drive on the bedside table and whispered, "They think they erased you, but you're still here." Sarah appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Ryan, what are you doing?" He turned to her slowly. "Ending this." Her voice trembled. "You're going to destroy yourself." He brushed a strand of hair from Emily's forehead. "I already did. Now I'm just finishing the job." Sarah shook her head, tears welling. "You're scaring me." He looked at her, voice quiet, almost kind. "You should be scared of the man who hurt her, not the one who's coming for him." He walked past her, his decision carved into his bones. Outside, the morning sky was bruised with the color of old wounds. Ryan stopped at the edge of the parking lot and looked back once, the hospital glowing faintly through fog. He whispered to himself, "No more orders, no more waiting." He climbed into the car and started the engine. The GPS on his dash blinked with the new coordinates he'd entered an hour ago, the address of Arthur Halston's private residence. He smiled for the first time in days, a thin, joyless curve. The soldier was gone. The father had taken command. And this mission had only one objective left: erase the untouchable. Night settled heavy over the city, a suffocating dark that swallowed the skyline. Ryan sat alone in his car outside Arthur Halston's mansion, the flash drive glowing faintly in his laptop. The security footage played again and again, Mark walking into the hospital, jacket dry despite the storm, face calm as stone. Behind him, a nurse moved to stop him. Then the camera cut to static. 1 minute. That's all the system allowed before erasing proof of what he'd done. 1 minute that told the whole story. Ryan closed the laptop and leaned back, staring through the windshield. Every breath felt heavier, slower. He thought of Emily, her heartbeat a steady beeping rhythm that held him together when nothing else could. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, then saw the timestamp, 2:14 a.m., and pressed play. A weak voice filled the car. "Hi, Daddy, it's me?" The sound cut through him like glass. Emily's voice was faint, wavering, but real. "The nurse said you're coming home." I'm okay, I think. I had a bad dream, but she said you're under the ice still." She laughed softly, breath catching. "You said you'd bring me something from the ocean. Maybe a shell or a whale picture." Ryan closed his eyes, hand trembling. He could hear machines in the background, the steady pulse of monitors. "Mom said you're mad. Don't be mad, okay? She cries a lot. I told her you'd fix it. You always fix everything." A pause. A cough. Then quieter, "I miss you." Static. The message ended abruptly. Ryan sat motionless for a long time, the silence pressing into his chest. He replayed it once, then again, each word searing deeper until it became unbearable. That was his daughter's last belief in him, that he could fix everything. He looked at the gun resting on the passenger seat. It was a military issue, just something he'd bought from a pawn shop hours earlier. A simple tool, nothing more. He picked it up, checked the chamber, and slid it under his coat. Through the windshield, the mansion loomed like a fortress of glass and arrogance. Guards paced at the gate. Cameras blinked under the eaves. But Ryan had lived half his life in places where silence killed faster than bullets. He moved like shadow through the hedges, slipped past the first gate, and climbed the side wall where the cameras overlapped in blind angles. Inside, lights glowed warm across marble floors. The house smelled of money and fear pretending to be power. Voices drifted from the back parlor. Mark's laugh, brittle and fake, and another, deeper one that could only belong to Arthur Halston. Ryan paused at the doorway, listening. The investigation's closed, Arthur was saying. He can pound the table all he wants. The case is buried. That girl won't remember a thing when she wakes. Mark chuckled. Guess the commander's got nothing left to fight for now. Ryan stepped into the light. You're wrong. Both men froze. Mark's glass slipped from his hand again, shattering against tile. Arthur straightened slowly, mass of composure cracking. Commander Cole, I advise you. You don't advise me anymore. The room held its breath. Rain started again outside, tapping gently against the windows, the only witness to what was about to happen. Ryan's voice dropped, cold and precise. You both took from her, one with your hands, the other with your power. I'm just here to balance the math. Mark stumbled backward. You don't want to do this, Cole. Ryan raised a weapon, steady as a surgeon's hand. I already did. The thunder outside swallowed the sound that followed. He turned to Arthur, who trembled behind his desk. You silenced everyone who could speak for her, so I'll speak in your language. Arthur whispered, You'll never walk away from this. Ryan lowered the gun. That's the point. Sirens wailed in the distance. He didn't run. He walked to the front door, rain pouring harder now, washing the blood from the steps as if the night itself wanted it gone. He looked up once, whispered into the storm, I fixed it, baby. Then he disappeared into the rain, just another ghost leaving the house that justice forgot. The first light of dawn crept through the rain clouds, gray and unforgiving. The mansion that had once glowed with gold warmth now stood hollow, its windows fractured, its silence complete. The storm had washed away the footprints, but not the truth. Ryan Cole walked down the long gravel drive, his coat soaked through, each step heavier than the last. Behind him, sirens wailed closer, growing, splitting the dawn air into sharp, desperate cries. He didn't hurry. There was nothing left to run from. At the end of the driveway, he stopped beside the stone gate and looked back once. Mark Halston lay where the thunder had left him. Arthur Halston was alive. Barely. Ryan hadn't killed him. That man would wake to face a world where his power couldn't protect him anymore. The flash drive with the erased footage now sat on Arthur's mahogany desk, blinking blue like a single unblinking eye. Ryan had made sure of it. He looked up at the pale horizon and whispered, Now the truth gets seen. He could already hear the crunch of police tires on gravel, the bark of orders, the metallic clatter of drawn weapons. He raised his hands slowly, palms open to the morning light. But before they reached him, he heard another engine, smaller, faster. A dark sedan stopped beside him, and Detective Alan Pierce stepped out, trench coat whipping in the wind. Get in, Pierce said. Ryan blinked. You know what I've done? Yeah, Pierce muttered. And I also know what they did. Move. Ryan hesitated, then slid into the passenger seat. Pierce drove fast, cutting off the incoming cruisers before they could close the loop. Through the rear-view mirror, Ryan caught a final glimpse of flashing blue lights flooding the mansion drive. For a while, neither spoke. The city unfurled before them. Wet streets, empty intersections, a horizon starting to burn with weak sunlight. Finally, Ryan said quietly, It's over. Pierce shook his head. No, it's just beginning. Once they see that footage, they'll have no choice but to open the case. They'll bury it again. Not this time. Pierce said, Arthur's name is all over the evidence trail now. You expose the rot. That's more than anyone's done in 10 years. Ryan stared out the window. And Emily? Pierce's voice softened. The hospital called. She's awake. Ryan turned to him slowly, disbelief flickering through exhaustion. Awake? Barely. The nurse said she whispered something before the sedatives took her back under. She said, Tell Daddy I heard him. The words landed like a blow to the chest. Ryan pressed a trembling hand to his mouth, fighting the surge of emotion he'd buried for too long. For the first time since that night under the ice, he let himself breathe. Pierce slowed the car at a crossroads. You can see her, but after that, I can't hide you. Ryan nodded. Don't. I'm done hiding. Mercy General stood quiet in the early light, rain dripping from the gutters like tears. Ryan walked the familiar hallways, every sound amplified. The squeak of shoes, the soft chatter of nurses, the faint hum of life behind closed doors. When he reached Emily's room, Dr. Morgan met him outside. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I know," he said, "but I had to." She studied him for a moment, saw the weight he carried, and then stepped aside. Ryan entered the room. The world fell away. Emily lay pale but breathing, her small hand twitching under the sheet. Machines hummed steadily. He sat beside her bed, taking her hand gently. Her eyes fluttered open for a second, weak, unfocused, but enough. "Daddy," she whispered. "I'm here," he said softly. "You found me." His throat tightened. "Always." Her eyes closed again, drifting back to sleep, but the faintest smile touched her lips. He stayed there, holding her hand until the first rays of sun broke through the blinds. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Police, calm but certain. Ryan didn't move. When the door opened, he turned, raised his hands, and said quietly, "She's safe now." The officers nodded, their guns lowering slightly. Detective Pierce stepped in last, meeting Ryan's eyes. No words passed between them, only understanding. Ryan stood, looked one last time at his daughter, and whispered, "Mission complete." Then he walked out calmly, sunlight washing across his face like absolution. The world outside was still gray, but the ice had finally broken. The jail cell was quiet. Morning sunlight crept through the narrow window, slicing across the concrete like a blade of gold. Ryan sat on the edge of the cot, wrists cuffed, back straight. He hadn't slept. The hum of distant voices in the corridor, the shuffle of guards, the metallic clank of gates, sounded strangely peaceful. For the first time in months, his mind was still. A knock came at the bars. Detective Pierce stood outside, holding a paper cup of coffee. "They'll move you soon," he said. "Federal custody." Ryan nodded. "Figured." Pierce slid the cup through the slot. "You're looking at decades, maybe life." But he hesitated. Arthur Halston's in the hospital under guard. His statement leaked. He admitted everything, the interference, the bribes, the report he destroyed. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "That happened before or after I pulled the trigger?" Pierce gave a faint smile. "Maybe fear's a better interrogator than I am." They both fell silent. Outside, the sun was rising, slow, deliberate. The light touched Ryan's face, softening the sharp edges of war and grief it carved there. "Emily?" he asked quietly. Pierce's expression changed. "She's awake for good this time. Stable. Dr. Morgan said she's asking for you." Ryan closed his eyes, exhaling. "Good. They won't move her somewhere safer," Pierce continued. "A recovery unit upstate, away from press. She deserves that." Pierce hesitated again. "Sarah's with her. She said to tell you." He glanced at his notes. "She said he saved her, in his own way." Ryan didn't respond. His gaze was fixed on the patch of sunlight inching across the floor. "You'll have visitors soon," Pierce said finally. "Captain Bennett's testifying on your behalf. Said command intercepted your message without authorization. She's taking responsibility." Ryan looked up, almost smiling. "She didn't have to." "Maybe she did," Pierce said. "Everyone's trying to do one right thing before the story ends." Ryan leaned back against the wall, eyes half closed. "Funny, that's all I ever wanted." Pierce checked his watch. "Transport's here. You ready?" Ryan nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm ready." Pierce lingered a moment longer. "You know, for what it's worth, people out there are calling you a hero." Ryan shook his head. "Heroes don't break laws." The detective looked at him evenly. "No, they break silence." He turned to leave, but Ryan's voice stopped him. "Alan!" Pierce looked back. "Make sure she gets the drawing," Ryan said. "The whale one. It's in my duffel." Pierce nodded once, his throat tight. "I will." The door clanged shut behind him. Hours later, the van rumbled down the highway, sunlight flashing through the bars. Ryan stared out the horizon, fields stretching endless under a sky that finally looked alive. The world kept moving, uncaring, beautiful. He thought about Emily's voice, faint but full of trust. You always fix everything. He smiled, small and tired. Maybe he hadn't fixed everything, but he'd fixed enough. The van slowed at a stoplight. Through the window, Ryan caught sight of father holding his little girl's hand as they crossed the street, her laughter ringing above the noise of traffic. For a heartbeat, it felt like the world was giving him something back. He whispered to the glass, "Keep her safe," whether he meant Emily or every child like her. Even he wasn't sure. The light turned green. The van rolled forward. Back in the city, sunlight broke fully across the skyline, washing over Mercy General's windows. Over the bed where Emily slept, her small hand clutching a folded crayon drawing of a whale. On the back, in Ryan's handwriting, one line was scrawled in pencil. "Daddy's gone to surface." The water's calm now. The day began. The world turned. And somewhere between guilt and grace, Ryan Cole finally found peace.